Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and we're specifically going to talk about Dungeons & Dragons YouTube commentators who have subscriber counts between 10,000 and 100,000, who are the most useful to Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Dungeon Masters and Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition players today. Let's kick it off. All right. So I got a little bit of a mnemonic. Sly Nerds, Craft Beast, Seth. Sly Nerds, Craft Beast, Seth. Let's kick it off. All right. Boy, oh boy. The most, and these are the top five. These are the top five Dungeons & Dragons YouTube commentators. That is definitely a debatable subject. Other people would say, Scott, these people aren't Dungeons & Dragons commentators. You could debate it below. I say they are. So just me saying this, I consider every single one of these people a Dungeons & Dragons commentator. I think what I've said previously should explain that. So we're going to keep going. All right, Dungeons & Dragons commentators who have subscriber counts between 10,000 and 100,000, who are most useful to Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition Dungeon Masters and Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition commentators. Let's kick it off. Sly Flourish, number one most useful Dungeons & Dragons commentator with a sub count between YouTube commentator with a sub count between 10,000 and 100,000. I'll tell you right now, Sly Flourish is bar none, the most underrated, undersubscribed Dungeons & Dragons commentator on the planet Earth today. He does more work in a more organized manner, in a more winsome way than anyone. He wrote the Lazy Dungeon Master, the Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master. He's brilliant and he gets respect, but not at the level of the work he does. He has less than 40,000 subs. He should have 400,000 subs. Like, he is the most undersubscribed, underrated Dungeons & Dragons commentator on the planet, bar none. He is absolutely fantastic. And by the way, he's the son of a famous author. He is the son of the guy who wrote the Illuminati, one of the guys who wrote the Illuminatus trilogy back in, I think the 70s, maybe late 60s, right? But he's actually the son of a famous author. Sly Flourish, his real name is Mike Shea. He's brilliant. Go check out his channel. Everybody I'm talking about right now, there's a link for a playlist below, which you can go and enjoy all of their contents, right? Absolutely fantastic. He does an hour-long show that I've started listening. I'm starting to listen. He's becoming gold content for me. I listen to virtually everything he does. He's also skilled at Kickstarters. He's just magnificent. I can't say enough about him. All right. Sly Nerd, Craft Beast, Seth. All right. So, Nerd Immersion. Nerd Immersion is tremendous. He is getting close to 100,000 subs. I think he was really hoping he could break 100,000 subs this year, but he didn't. Right? So it's a hard game, baby. Getting subs on YouTube ain't easy, and keeping them ain't easy, right? So this is me commentating on commentator. This is me, a Dungeons & Dragons commentator, commentating on Dungeons & Dragons commentators. This is a real discipline that is starting to emerge, and I think is really interesting. And we have a discipline. We have a discipline where, within that discipline, it's brand new and it's barely even recognized. Okay. And by the way, we're not talking about tabletop role-playing game commentary. Nobody cares about that because we can't reach tabletop role-playing game commentary until we reach Dungeons & Dragons commentary, because people don't know tabletop role-playing games at the macro level, at the mass level, right? All right, so let's talk about Nerd Immersion. Nerd Immersion is he has a fantastic channel. One of the things he does is he just stays super, super laser focused on Dungeons & Dragons now. Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, right? I don't think anybody in the game, he don't mess around. He is all D&D 5e all the time, right? But I also think he is, more than anybody else on this list, D&D now. I don't think he gives like me, I hate to say this, He don't give two rats about Dungeons & Dragons 5e. He cares about D&D now. And on this channel, we can talk about that distinction, right? He's never going to be a D&D then guy, right? Nerd Immersion is like, I care what's happening right now in Dungeons & Dragons. I understand Dungeons & Dragons as an event, as a cultural force of nature, right? And so I think he's one of the guys that gets D&D now is a thing, right? That the number and the E doesn't matter. What matters is D&D now, right? And just like there's a whole group of people dedicated to D&D then, D&D not, right? He is laser focused on D&D now. I love that about him. He's very winsome. Again, you know, like, and this I keep using this term. It's somebody who has always has a smile on their face and focuses on the positive. I wish I could do it as well as they do, right? I got goals to accomplish, right? And that's one of the reasons why I'm so sour about certain things. I'm like, this is blocking me from my freaking goal, right? And I have goals for Dungeons & Dragons. It's just a flat fact, okay? But I love how positive he is and how he just interacts with every new product that for Dungeons & Dragons that comes out. And I'm talking every new product, right? Like, he does reviews for Dungeons & Dragons, like, Nerf guns, you know, like, and the Nerds candy. And, like, if it's got D&D on it, he covers it. His coverage is amazing. He's, and also he's only thing I think is a little bit interesting about him is he's one of these guys who's got the scent of professionalism in him, right? Like, and I feel bad for these people because I've seen this road, right? And I'll tell you, Dungeons & Dragons commentary is a wonderful thing. You try to go pro, you better be ready to reap the whirlwind, baby. Because to take this pro is very, very hard. I saw somebody do it. I saw somebody go from amateur to pro in D&D commentary, and I will tell you, he left a trail of bodies. Not literally, figuratively. Friends, family, he burnt humans like fuel, right? And it's like, and I hate to say it, like, when you pursue celebrity, and that's what this is, celebrity within the D&D community, it turns to tears and flames fast, right? And if you think I'm wrong, I want you to go take a look at Pruitt from last year. He is the number one proof that D&D commentary ain't easy. It is not easy. That dude had sponsors rolling in, had videos with hundreds of thousands of views, over 100,000 subscribers, and was like, this is burning my mental health, and I cannot do this any longer, right? He had won the D&D commentary game and had to bow out, right? Like a few people get this. D&D commentary is not an easy game. It really isn't. And when you try to go pro, Lord help you, right? It gets 10 times worse. And it has casualties, like casualties from the perspective of, like, of course Pruitt didn't die, but, like, figuratively, he's out of the game. Like, it was very challenging to see, right? And I think Nerd Immersion he's getting the scent of, oh, I'd like to go pro. Good luck. I don't know. We'll see. And it's hard. It's very, very hard. But he's got the talent. I don't know if the market can support somebody professionally. Not in a way that's worth the human cost right now. It's just my opinion, right? Okay. So Sly Nerd, Craft Beast Seth. All right. So the next is Dungeon Crafts, Professor Dungeon Master. Brilliant, beautiful channel. He's one of the things I really like about his channel is he is actually directly connected to Runehammer Games. Brandish Gilhelm is over there. He makes, I actually think Runehammer Games makes the best tabletop role-playing games in the world. If you don't count cultural impact and history, right? But of course you have to, like, you don't really get there until anybody who thinks their tabletop role-playing game matters without culture and out history, it's just a shallow view. It's not, I don't want to say people are dumb, it's just shallow, right? So when it comes to game mechanics and just pure energy and awesomeness, Runehammer Games is the shiznit. Like, they're crushing it. Their index card RPG is amazing. I own every single product they've ever created, right? Like, they're just amazing. And Dungeon Craft sees this more than anybody, and he talks up Runehammer Games quite a bit. He does great content. He really has. He's also has like this fun alter ego, like, which is like this, deep-throated barbarian who just kind of comes in and comments on his stuff, and it's very funny. His videos are very professional and just very like restrained and organized. Like, it's just, he sets a bar for quality. Dungeon Craft is absolutely spectacular. He goes by Professor Dungeon Master. Brilliant commentator. I love his stuff. He's really, really good. And I think one of the things other too is he is one of the best Dungeons & Dragons commentators for pointing out quality in D&D not, and in D&D not. I hate to say it, in that bracket of products, right? Brilliant guy, brilliant content. Encourages me to make my channel better. Just like, and somebody who's ahead of me. I would say most of these guys are ahead of me as far as their D&D commentary. Just because I do this in the time I have for it, so I have very limited time for it. I'd love to do more, but life prevents that. So, all right. So that was Questing Beast. Questing Beast is the next. That guy, again, I think one of the things that's a theme through this is these are really nice people who have very level, very, they're really they attach joy to the hobby, which I think is great. I wish I could do that more. And and they do. And Questing Beast he is one of the best. So he does these flip throughs, and he's got it on rails, right? Like, he's got his camera in the right place, everything's lit beautifully, and he's done such a great job at highlighting D&D not content, which I think now what do you do with D&D not content, right? You take D&D not content, you buy it, you look through it, and you take 3 ideas and put it into your D&D 5e game, right? You don't run it. Maybe you run it in your 49%, as long as you're keeping D&D 5e primary, you can run a campaign, that's fine. And he brings out he really does a spectacular job of highlighting D&D not content. And his flip throughs are absolutely fantastic. They're just beautiful. It's like watching the book. It's a beautiful video presentation of the book itself. And he's done such an amazing job at it that everybody in D&D not that matters sends him their product for free. And he gets so much content, I don't even think he has time to even go through everything he receives. So the flip throughs he's doing are the best of the best, right, in the D&D not space. So he is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, content creator, really, really fantastic. Also, just, that whole joyfulness part, I think there's a lot of skirmishes that are happening in D&D commentary right now, which I'm all for, as long as it's over the content, and like debating subjects rather than insulting each other and threatening each other. It's a whole mess, right? Like, but he keeps it at the right level. But even last year, I was surprised. He covered a few, even he, as winsome and joyful as he is, isn't above the skirmish level, right? He did a couple reviews that had to get pulled, right? Because for, whether he pulled them, or people asked him to get pulled, or people said, you should pull this, right? And that's whole part of the D&D commentary ain't easy. Like, a lot of people put content up, and if you're putting content up at a quantity level, I certainly do quantity, right? You're going to end up pulling stuff down. It's a fact, right? And like, it actually encouraged me that that Questing Beast had to pull some videos down, because I'm like, no matter how you do this, you're going to end up offending somebody. It's like you try to not step on toes, but then you end up stepping on toes. It's a thing, right? So I think Questing Beast stuff is really spectacular. Really, really dig his stuff. All right, next is Seth Skorkowski, right? And he really highlights a lot of Call of Cthulhu. He highlights a lot of Traveler, right? But I do think he is a D&D commentator, because he talks about D&D Dungeons & Dragons in context of these other games. And the reason why is no tabletop role-playing game commentator right now, because of the shape of the industry, really escapes the orbit of Dungeons and Dragons, and Seth Gorkowski is no exception to that. He is very funny. He puts a ton of time and energy into his video, and he's got some really funny Easter eggs, that, like, him talking to himself. He actually does period pieces, and he absolutely loves Call of Cthulhu, loves Traveler. The reason why Dungeons & Dragons 5e dungeon masters and dungeon players should view him is he talks a lot about narrative, and he talks about how building good stories and making sure that you have the right balance between player character interaction and non-player character interaction. Brilliant Dungeons & Dragons player and dungeon master who has moved on and does a lot of D&D. He's just doing like science fiction stuff that isn't even copies of D&D then, right? But he really is a fantastic Dungeons & Dragons commentator. I think Dungeons & Dragons 5e, Dungeons & Dragons 5e dungeon masters and dungeon players should be very aware of him, and take the time to actually enjoy his content. He's really spectacularly brilliant. So that, to me, is the 5 best Dungeons & Dragons commentators who do content under who have subscribers between 10,000 and 100,000. What do you think? I got the order right? Is there somebody else else you would put into this 5 bracket? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.